I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. 3 days after my son Andrew's wedding, his new wife Diane showed up at my door with a man in an expensive suit carrying a leather briefcase. "Mom, Ava," she said with that smile I'd learned to distrust, "this is Marcus Webb. He's here to help you with some important financial planning." My heart pounded. I knew exactly what they wanted, but they had no idea what I'd quietly discovered just 2 weeks earlier, a secret my late husband James had kept even from me. Thank God I'd kept my mouth shut about it. But to tell this story properly, I need to take you back 3 months. Back to the day everything started to unravel. The smell of cinnamon and apples filled my kitchen that Tuesday morning. I was making pie, the same recipe my mother taught me 50 years ago. My hands, wrinkled now, but still steady, pressed the dough into the pan while sunlight streamed through the window of my modest 3-bedroom house in Ballard, a quiet neighborhood in Seattle. 2 years. That's how long it had been since James died. 2 years of waking up alone in our bed. 2 years of cooking for one. 2 years of that crushing silence that fills a house when the person you built your life with is suddenly gone. But that morning felt different. My phone rang and Andrew's name lit up the screen. "Mom, I have news." His voice carried that excitement I hadn't heard in years. "I'm getting married." I nearly dropped the rolling pin. "Married, Andrew? That's wonderful." I pressed the phone to my ear with floury hands. "When who is she? Tell me everything." "Her name is Diane Sterling. We met 8 months ago at a tech networking event. She works in marketing for a major software company." He paused. "Mom, she's incredible. Smart, ambitious, beautiful. I can't wait for you to meet her." 8 months. They'd been together 8 months, and this was the first I was hearing about her. But I pushed that thought away. My son, my only child, was finally settling down at 32. "I want you to really get to know her before the wedding," Andrew continued. "Can we come to dinner this Friday? Diane's really particular about family. She wants to make a good impression." After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd nursed Andrew's scraped knees, helped with homework, celebrated every birthday, and felt something I hadn't felt since James died. Hope. That afternoon, I drove to the Metropolitan Market on Queen Anne, the fancy one I usually avoided because of the prices. But this was special. I picked out the freshest ingredients, large shrimp still glistening on ice, perfectly ripe avocados, organic herbs, heavy cream from a local dairy. I'd make Andrew's favorites. The clam chowder he'd loved since childhood, my special Caesar salad, grilled salmon with lemon butter, and that apple pie still warm from the oven. In my mind, I imagined the conversations I'd have with Diane. I'd share family recipe stories about Andrew as a boy, advice about keeping my son happy. Maybe we'd become close. Maybe she'd be the daughter I never had. I stayed up until nearly midnight cooking. My feet swelled from standing so long, but I didn't care. The chowder was silky and rich, full of clams and potatoes. The pie crust was flaky and golden. Everything had to be perfect. The next day, I tried on 3 different outfits before settling on my best dress, a soft pink one I'd bought for James's company Christmas party 3 years ago. I did my hair carefully, even put on lipstick. This woman would be family, the mother of my future grandchildren, God willing. I wanted her to like me. When Friday came, I was ready an hour early. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock. I smoothed my dress one last time and opened the door with the biggest smile I could manage. "Diane, it's so wonderful to finally meet you." I opened my arms for a hug. She touched my shoulders with just her fingertips, like touching me was unpleasant. Her hands were cold. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Morrison," she said without looking me in the eye. Mrs. Morrison. Not Mom or even Ava, just Mrs. Morrison, like I was a stranger. But she wasn't alone. "Mom, this is Patricia Sterling, Diane's mother," Andrew said quickly, noticing my confusion. A second woman stepped forward, mid-50s blonde hair and a severe bun, wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. Her handshake was firm, her smile practiced. "How lovely to finally see Andrew's childhood home," Patricia said, her eyes already scanning my living room. "Such a cozy neighborhood. The property values here must be quite stable." Property values. At a first meeting, I led them to the dining room where I'd set the table with my good china, the set James and I got as a wedding gift. White plates with delicate blue flowers. Crystal glasses I hand-washed because they were too precious for the dishwasher. Diane wore a designer dress in emerald green with heels so high they clicked on my hardwood floors like tiny hammers. She sat down carefully as if my chair might stain her outfit. "Everything looks homemade," she observed, eyeing the spread. The way she said homemade made it sound like an insult. "I hope you like clam chowder," I said, ladling the creamy soup into bowls. "Andrew's father used to request this every Friday." "We usually eat at the Metropolitan Grill," Patricia interjected. "Do you know it? Their seafood is flown in daily from Alaska." "This is great, Mom," Andrew said quickly, tasting the soup. "Just like I remember." But Diane was pushing pieces of clam around her bowl with her spoon, separating each ingredient like she was dodging poison. Her red manicured nails looked too perfect against my simple ceramic dishes. I tried to make conversation. "So Diane, Andrew mentioned you work in marketing. That must be exciting." "I'm Senior Marketing Director at Vertex Solutions." She didn't look up from her phone. "We're launching a major campaign next quarter. It's extremely demanding work." "Do you enjoy cooking?" I asked, hoping to find common ground. She glanced up, her expression unreadable. "I don't have time for that. I prefer ordering in or going to proper restaurants." Proper restaurants. So mine wasn't proper. The word stabbed at something tender inside me. This food I'd spent hours preparing, cooked with love in the kitchen, where I'd raised her future husband, it wasn't proper enough. Andrew cleared his throat and changed the subject. "How's the garden doing, Mom? Still growing those tomatoes?" I tried to focus on my son, but I felt Diane's eyes on me. Evaluating, judging, finding me lacking. When I brought out the salmon, Patricia leaned forward. "So Mrs. Morrison, after James passed Andrew, mentioned it was quite sudden. Did everything get settled easily? Estate planning can be so complicated." The question felt like a probe, like she was fishing for information. "Yes, everything was handled properly," I said carefully. "Any surprises in the will?" Patricia pressed, still smiling. "Sometimes husbands keep things separate, especially with business assets." "Mother," Diane said sharply, though I saw her eyes flick to Patricia's. A look passed between them that I didn't understand. The rest of the dinner was torture. Every attempt I made at conversation hit a wall. Diane answered in monosyllables when she answered at all. Patricia kept making subtle comments about real estate investments, retirement planning. And Andrew sat between us, trying to smooth things over, trying to make everything seem fine when it clearly wasn't. When they finally left after barely touching my apple pie, I stood at my front window and watched Andrew's car disappear down the street. My house felt emptier than it had in 2 years. I called Rachel, my best friend since our kids were in elementary school together. She answered on the second ring. "How did it go?" she asked. "Rachel, something felt wrong. I can't explain it, but..." I sank onto my couch. She looked at me like I was nothing, like I was in the way. "Give her time," Rachel soothed. "Maybe she was just nervous. First impressions can be deceiving." But lying in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that Diane hadn't been nervous at all. She'd been calculating. The next 2 months passed like a slow-motion car crash. Diane took over every aspect of wedding planning, and I found myself pushed further and further to the margins. When I offered to help choose the venue, Diane had already booked the 4 seasons without asking my input. When I suggested some traditional wedding ideas, things James and I had done, she smiled that cold smile and said, "We're going for something more modern, Mom Ava, more sophisticated." More sophisticated. As if my ideas were primitive. The worst was when I offered to make the wedding cake. It was family tradition. My grandmother baked for my mother's wedding. My mother baked for mine. I'd always dreamed of baking for Andrew's. I mentioned it during a phone call, excited about the idea. Traditional white cake with raspberry filling. 3 tiers with fondant flowers I'd learned to make from YouTube videos. Diane actually laughed. Not a polite chuckle, a real laugh. "Oh, Mom Ava, that's sweet, but no. We've hired Honeycomb Cake Studio. They're professionals. We can't risk anything. Homemade." That word again. Homemade, like it was a disease. That night I sat in my kitchen and cried, clutching the apron my mother had given me on my own wedding day. My cakes had sweetened birthdays, baptisms, graduations. I'd made Andrew's birthday cake every single year until he went to college. But to Diane, the love baked into every layer wasn't good enough. Andrew called less and less. When he did visit, he was always rushed, always looking at his watch, and he'd started saying things that didn't sound like him. Mom, have you thought about downsizing? This house is pretty big for one person. At your age, isn't yard work getting to be too much? Diane knows a great financial advisor who specializes in retirement planning. Maybe you should talk to him. At my age, like 69 meant I was already 1 foot in the grave. One afternoon I was invited to a dress fitting for the mother of the groom, the invitation said, though it felt like an afterthought. I arrived at the boutique in downtown Seattle excited despite everything. This was still my son's wedding. But when I walked in, I found Patricia holding court in the VIP area, sitting in the best chair drinking champagne from a crystal flute. The staff clustered around her like she was royalty. I was directed to a side chair, given tap water in a plastic cup. "Oh, Mrs. Morrison, you're here," Diane said when she finally noticed me. Not "I'm so glad you came," or "thanks for being here." Just acknowledging my presence like I was a delivery person who'd arrived on time. For the next hour, I watched Patricia be treated like the mother of the groom while I sat forgotten in the corner. When the staff asked about family photos, Diane directed them to take pictures with Patricia, not me. At one point, I heard Patricia whisper to Diane, "Much better than I expected. Good location, good bones. In a few years, if you play it right." They both glanced my way, then quickly looked away. I pretended I hadn't heard, but something cold settled in my chest. When I got home, I pulled out old photo albums. Pictures of baby Andrew, his first steps, first day of school, first baseball game. Pictures of our family, me, James, and Andrew on camping trips at Disneyland at his high school graduation. In every photo, Andrew was smiling, happy, loved. When had I become someone he needed to escape from? April 20th arrived with perfect Seattle spring weather, sunny with just enough breeze to keep things comfortable. I'd bought a new dress for the occasion, an elegant purple one with 3/4 sleeves. I'd gone to Carol's salon in Ballard, where Carol had done my hair beautifully, sweeping it up in a style that took years off my face. "You look beautiful, Ava," Carol said, adjusting a final pin. "Your son is going to be so proud." I wanted to believe her. The wedding was at the Four Seasons, a hotel I'd only ever seen from the outside. When I arrived early, because I'm always early, I was overwhelmed by the grandeur. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, flower arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. A young woman with a clipboard directed guests to their seats. I watched as Andrew's friends, people I'd known since he was in middle school, were ushered to good seats in the front rows. "Mrs. Morrison," the clipboard woman consulted her list. "You're in row 7. 7, I repeated. "I'm the groom's mother." "Yes, ma'am, row 7, seat 12. I walked down the aisle in my beautiful purple dress, past colleagues from Diane's work who'd never met Andrew, past distant relatives of the Sterlings, past neighbors who'd just moved in next to Patricia last year. Row 7, behind people who barely knew my son. Patricia Sterling sat in row 2 right behind Diane's parents in a place of honor. From row 7, I had to crane my neck to see Andrew when he walked down the aisle. I couldn't see his face clearly. Couldn't see if he was nervous or excited or happy. I was just another guest at my own son's wedding. The ceremony was beautiful, I suppose. Everything was white and gold and perfect, but all I could think about was how small I felt, how invisible. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," everyone stood and applauded. I clapped too, tears streaming down my face, but they weren't happy tears. At the reception, things got worse. I was seated at table 14, with distant relatives of Diane's. I'd never met an aunt from Portland who spent the whole dinner talking about her timeshare in Mexico, and a cousin who kept checking his phone. From my table in the back, I could barely see the head table where Andrew and Diane sat laughing with their wedding party. Patricia was at table 2 next to Diane's parents, sharing champagne and stories. When it came time for toasts, Diane orchestrated everything like a conductor leading an orchestra. Her father spoke. Her mother spoke. Her brother spoke. Her best friend spoke. Her college roommate spoke. A coworker spoke. Someone finally said, "What about the groom's mother?" Diane looked around as if she'd forgotten I existed. "Oh, yes. Miss Ava can say a few short words if she'd like." Short words. As if my 69 years and 32 years of motherhood were worth only a brief moment. I stood up, my legs trembling. Every eye in the room turned to me, but I felt like they were looking through me. "I want to thank God for this beautiful day," I began, my voice shaking. "Watching Andrew grow into the man he is today has been my greatest joy. I wish his father could be here to see. Diane started clapping, loud, sharp claps that cut through my words like scissors. Others joined in and my voice was swallowed by the forced applause. I sat down, my speech unfinished, my heart breaking. Dinner was served. Rubber chicken and overcooked vegetables. I pushed food around my plate, watching my son celebrate with his new family while I sat alone among strangers. When the dancing started, I watched Andrew dance with Diane, a beautiful first dance to a song I didn't recognize. Then he danced with Patricia, who beamed like she was his real mother. Then with Diane's sisters. I sat at table 14, smoothing my purple dress, trying to keep my smile from cracking. Andrew's friend Marcus, someone I'd known since he and Andrew were in Boy Scouts together, stopped by my table. "You're not going to dance with your son?" he asked, confused. "Soon," I said. "He's busy with Diane's family right now." But soon never came. At 10:30, I couldn't take any more. I found Andrew near the bar, surrounded by his groomsmen. "Son, I think I'm going to head out," I said, touching his arm gently. He hugged me quickly, his eyes already drifting back to his friends. "Thanks for everything, Mom. Love you." But he wasn't looking at me when he said it. Diane appeared beside him like a shadow. "Thanks for coming, Mom, Ava." Her tone made it sound like a goodbye, a permanent one. I walked through the grand lobby of the Four Seasons, past the beautiful flowers and the elegant guests. I walked to the parking garage where my old Honda Civic sat between BMWs and Mercedes. As I fumbled with my keys, I heard voices echoing in the concrete space. Diane's voice, talking to someone. Thank God she lives far away. She's not a bad person, I suppose, but you know how mothers-in-law are. Always wanting to be involved in everything, always thinking they know best. Giggles. Her bridesmaids. "At least she's not rich enough to be demanding," one of them said. "Can you imagine if she had money, she'd probably hold it over Andrew's head." More laughter. I stood frozen behind a pillar, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my keys. They didn't see me. They just kept walking, their voices fading. I got into my car and drove home through blurry tears. 32 years. I'd given Andrew 32 years of my life. Every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference, every late night when he was sick, every sacrifice, every prayer, every moment of love. And in one evening, I'd become nothing more than an inconvenience. The drive home took 40 minutes. A love song from my own wedding played on the radio, and I thought about James, about how he'd promised to always protect me, about how lost I felt without him. I got home after midnight, took off my beautiful purple dress, and cried myself to sleep. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks without a call from Andrew. No, "How are you, Mom?" No, "Thanks for coming to the wedding." Nothing. I called him 5 times. Each time he answered with the same rushed tone. "Hey, Mom, kinda busy right now. Can I call you back?" He never called back. I texted. Short messages. "Thinking of you. Hope married life is wonderful. Would love to see you soon." He responded with thumbs-up emojis. That was it. My son, who I'd carried for 9 months, raised for 32 years, reduced our relationship to emojis. Rachel came over on a Tuesday with lasagna and wine. "He's busy settling into married life," she said, trying to make me feel better. Give him time. But I knew. Deep in my gut, I knew this wasn't about being busy. I'd been erased. On week 4, I decided I couldn't sit and wait anymore. I baked chocolate walnut cookies, Andrew's favorite since he was 7 years old. The same recipe I'd made for every bake sale, every bad day, every celebration. I packed them in a basket with a yellow bow, his favorite color, and drove to Bellevue to the condo he and Diane had just bought. The building was one of those modern glass towers overlooking Lake Washington, the kind of place with a doorman and marble lobbies. I felt out of place in my simple khakis and cardigan. I found their unit 2107 and knocked. Diane opened the door. She was wearing a wine-colored silk robe that looked expensive, her hair in a perfect bun. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. "Oh, Mom Ava, what a surprise." No smile, no warmth. "I brought cookies for Andrew." I held up the basket. "His favorites, chocolate walnut." She took the basket without inviting me in. She didn't even look inside. "How thoughtful." Her voice was flat. "Andrew is in a very important video conference. I'll let him know you stopped by." I stood in the hallway waiting for her to say something else, to ask how I was, to invite me in for just a moment. "Was there something else?" she asked. "No, I wanted to see him. It's been a month since the wedding. We've been very busy. Setting up the house, it's quite a process. She was already closing the door. Thanks for the cookies, Mom Ava. Have a nice day. The door shut in my face. I stood in that expensive hallway looking at the closed door with its brass numbers and felt something crack inside me. I made it to my car before I started crying. Not quiet tears, loud gulping sobs that shook my whole body. I pounded my fists on the steering wheel, not caring if anyone saw. How had I let this happen? How had I let this woman take my son away from me so completely? That night I couldn't eat. I sat in front of the TV, not watching, just staring. My phone rang at 8. Rachel. "How did it go?" she asked. "She wouldn't even let me in," I said, my voice hollow. She took the cookies and closed the door. "Oh, honey. He doesn't want me in his life anymore, Rachel. He's chosen her over me." "No," Rachel said firmly. "He's been manipulated. But Andrew's still in there somewhere. The boy who loved you doesn't just disappear." After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Then I remembered something James had said to me before he died. He'd been in bed weak from the heart condition the doctor said they could manage, but couldn't. He'd held my hand, his grip surprisingly strong. "Ava, if anything happens to me, don't let anyone trample you." "Nothing's going to happen," I'd said, not wanting to hear it. "Listen to me." His eyes were intense. "You're stronger than you think, and you have more than you imagine. Check the safe when I'm gone. Everything's there for you. Everything I promised to protect you." I'd been so focused on his illness, on not losing him, that I'd barely heard the words. But now, sitting in my dark living room, they came back with crystal clarity. Check the safe. I'd opened it after he died, of course. Found the insurance papers, the house deed, the will. Everything had been handled by the lawyer. But had I really looked at everything, I went to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and opened the closet. The safe was on the top shelf, hidden behind old shoe boxes. My hands shook as I entered the combination. James's birthday. Inside were the documents I remembered. Birth certificates, marriage certificate, insurance policies, the house deed. But underneath, in a thick yellow envelope I didn't remember seeing before, was something else. I pulled it out and sat on the floor, right there in the closet. The envelope was labeled in James's handwriting, Morrison Family Trust, confidential. My heart started pounding. I opened it. The first document was a property deed. Riverbend Ranch, it said at the top. 520 acres, Chelan County, Washington. My mouth went dry. 520 acres, I kept reading. The property was near Wenatchee in eastern Washington. It included farmland, orchards, grazing pastures, a main house, 3 guest cottages, and outbuildings. It had been inherited by James from his Uncle Harold, who died 3 years ago. I remembered James going to the funeral, remembered him being quiet afterward. But he'd never mentioned inheriting anything. There was more. Rental agreements with a local apple farmer, lease contracts for the grazing land, property tax statements, and a recent appraisal. I had to read the number 3 times before my brain accepted it. $4.2 million. I sat on my closet floor surrounded by documents and felt the world tilt. $4 million. In property I didn't even know existed. There was a letter handwritten by James. My vision blurred with tears as I read. "My dearest Ava, if you're reading this, I'm gone and I'm so sorry I'm not there with you. Uncle Harold made me promise something when he left me Riverbend Ranch, never to sell it, to keep it in the family. He'd seen too many family properties sold off for quick cash, then regretted forever. I kept the ranch quiet. I managed it remotely through a property manager, a good man named Thomas Wright. The rental income went into a separate account I set up for emergencies. I never told you because I wanted you to be protected in ways that had nothing to do with money. I know that sounds strange, but I've seen how people change when they know someone has assets. I've seen family turn against family. I wanted you to be loved for who you are, not for what you have. Now it's yours, my love. All of it. Use it wisely. Use it to protect yourself. Trust your instincts about people. Some will love you for you. Others will love you for what you have. When it matters most, you'll know the difference. Take care of yourself. Take care of our boy. But take care of yourself first. All my love forever, James." I read the letter 4 times, crying harder each time. James had known. Somehow he'd known that one day I might need protection. that I might need power I could use to defend myself. I picked up my phone and called Rachel. "It's 11 o'clock at night," she answered groggily. "Rachel, you need to come over, right now." "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but I need you here, please." 20 minutes later, Rachel was sitting on my living room couch in her pajamas, reading through the documents while I made tea neither of us would drink. "Ava," she breathed, "do you realize what this means? You're not just comfortable. You're wealthy. Actually wealthy." "I don't feel wealthy. I feel terrified." Rachel looked up at me, her expression serious. "Do you understand what would have happened if Diane had known about this before the wedding?" I sank onto the couch beside her. "What do you mean?" "She would have played you perfectly. She would have pretended to love you, to want a relationship with you. She would have manipulated you and Andrew both until she had her hands on everything." The truth of that hit me like cold water. "And now?" I asked. "Now?" Rachel took my hand. "Now you have the power. Now you can protect yourself. Now when they show their true intentions, and they will, Ava, trust me, they will, you'll be ready." "Should I tell Andrew?" "No." Rachel's voice was firm. "Not yet. Let's see what happens. Let's see what they do next. If Andrew really loves you, if this marriage is about love and not money, then nothing will change. But if not—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We stayed up until 2 in the morning making plans. I would contact the property manager tomorrow. I would verify everything. And I would keep absolutely silent about it. As Rachel left, she hugged me tight. "Your husband was a smart man. He protected you even after he was gone." That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt dangerous. The next morning I called the number on the property management documents. "Right Property Management," a warm male voice answered. "Hello, my name is Ava Morrison. I'm calling about Riverbend Ranch." "Mrs. Morrison." The voice brightened. "It's so good to finally hear from you. This is Thomas Wright. I've been managing the property for your husband well for you now for 15 years. "I apologize, Mr. Wright. I didn't even know about the ranch until last night." "Call me Thomas, please. And I understand. Your husband was very private about it. Wanted everything running smoothly without bothering you with details." We talked for an hour. Thomas explained everything: the apple orchards that were leased to a local farming cooperative, the cattle grazing rights leased to a rancher named Miguel Rodriguez, the property taxes he'd been paying from the rental income account. "The main house is fully furnished and maintained," Thomas said. "Your husband visited twice a year to check on things. It's ready whenever you'd like to see it. And the income right now between the orchard lease and the grazing rights we're bringing in about $85,000 a year. All of it goes into the account your husband set up. I can email you the account information." $85,000 a year, just sitting in an account I didn't know existed. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and tried to process it all. I wasn't just surviving on Social Security and James's life insurance. I was wealthy, but more importantly, I had options. I had power. Rachel came over that afternoon with groceries and determination. "Okay," she said, unpacking food into my refrigerator. "We need a strategy." "A strategy for what?" "For when they come for you." "Rachel, that sounds paranoid." She turned to face me, hands on hips. "Really? They've already isolated you. They've already made Andrew distant. Diane wouldn't even let you in the door. What do you think happens next?" I thought about Patricia's questions about the estate, about Diane's comments about me downsizing, about Andrew suddenly suggesting I needed financial help. "They're going to try to take control of your assets," Rachel continued. "They're going to suggest you're too old to manage things yourself. They're going to try to get you to sell this house, put you somewhere easier to manage, and take over your finances." "That's crazy. Did you think a month ago that your son would stop talking to you? Did you think Diane would shut the door in your face?" She was right. A month ago, I wouldn't have believed any of this was possible. So what do? First, you don't tell them about the ranch. Not yet. Second, you protect your assets legally. And third, Rachel smiled a warrior's smile, you let them show you exactly who they are. The next day, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Robert Hayes had been practicing elder law for 30 years. His office was in the Smith Tower downtown with a view of Elliott Bay that reminded me why I loved Seattle. "Mrs. Morrison," he said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. Rachel Campbell spoke very highly of you. She said you needed some estate protection. I told him everything. The wedding, the isolation, the overheard conversation in the parking garage. Then I showed him the ranch documents. His eyebrows rose. This is significant. And you say your son and daughter-in-law don't know about this. No one knows except Rachel, and now you. He leaned back in his leather chair. Mrs. Morrison, what you're describing is a textbook pattern of elder financial abuse. It usually follows a very predictable sequence. He counted on his fingers. First, emotional manipulation, making you feel like a burden, isolating you from your support system. You've experienced that. I nodded. Second, undermining your confidence, suggesting you can't manage things yourself, that you need help. From what you've told me, that's starting. Andrew mentioned downsizing. Diane talked about financial advisors. Exactly. Third comes creating urgency. They'll present some crisis or opportunity that requires immediate action. Fourth, they'll offer a solution that benefits them, selling your house, transferring assets to their control, getting power of attorney. My hands were shaking. And then they control everything. Your home, your money, your independence. I've seen it dozens of times. Adult children who convince their parents to sign everything over for protection. Then the parent ends up in a facility while the children spend the inheritance. But Andrew wouldn't. He's my son. Hayes's expression was kind but firm. Mrs. Morrison, I've been doing this for 3 decades. The saddest cases are the ones where adult children convince themselves they're helping while they're actually stealing. They rationalize it. Mom's not capable. We'll use the money better. We deserve it after all we've done. I felt sick. What do? We protect everything, immediately. He pulled out a legal pad. First, we create an irrevocable trust for the ranch property. That means even if someone got power of attorney over you, which I'll make sure they couldn't touch the ranch. Second, we document everything. Every phone call, every conversation, every suggestion they make. If this goes to court, we'll need evidence. Court, you think it'll go to court? I think when they find out about the ranch, they'll try everything. And if they've already gone this far, he paused. Let me do some research on your daughter-in-law, just to be thorough. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked with Hayes to protect everything. We set up the trust. I got a full cognitive evaluation from my doctor, perfect scores, just to prove I was mentally competent. I opened new bank accounts in my name only, and I waited. Hayes called me on a Thursday afternoon. Mrs. Morrison, I found something interesting about Diane Sterling. What is it? She has a history. She worked for an elder care company 5 years ago. They were sued by several families for manipulating vulnerable seniors into changing their estate plans. The case was settled out of court and Diane wasn't personally charged, but her name appears in the depositions multiple times. My blood ran cold. She's done this before. It appears so. She seems to have a pattern of relationships with men who have aging parents with assets. Does Andrew know? I doubt it. These records aren't easy to find. But Mrs. Morrison, this means we're not dealing with simple greed. We're dealing with someone who knows exactly what she's doing. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Andrew, my sweet boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd hugged me every single morning before school. Was he being manipulated, or was he part of it? I didn't know which possibility hurt more. 2 weeks after my last meeting with Robert Hayes, my phone rang. Diane's name flashed on the screen. I hadn't heard from her since she'd shut the door in my face. My heart started pounding, but I forced my voice to stay calm. Hello, Diane. Mom, Ava. Her voice was sugary sweet, so different from the cold tone at her door. I'm so sorry we've been out of touch. Andrew and I have just been swamped with settling into the condo. I understand. I kept my words neutral. But we've been thinking about you. Andrew and I are worried, actually. This house must be so much work for you to manage alone. Here it comes, I thought. Hayes had predicted this almost word for word. The house is fine, I said carefully. I've lived here 35 years. I know every creaky board, but that's exactly what concerns us. You're doing everything yourself, the yard, the maintenance, the bills. At your age, Mom, it's just too much responsibility. At your age, there it was again. Like being 69 made me incompetent. We'd love to have you over to the condo, Diane continued. Saturday afternoon, we want to discuss some ideas we have. Ideas that could really help you enjoy your retirement more. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, but Rachel and Hayes had prepared me for this. Saturday works, I said. What time at 2 o'clock? And Mom, I'm bringing someone who might be helpful. A financial advisor Andrew and I have been working with, just to give you some perspective on your options. Options. What she meant was their plan. After we hung up, I immediately called Rachel, then Hayes. It's happening, I told them both. They're inviting me over with a financial advisor. Perfect, Hayes said. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Just listen, act uncertain, and if possible, record the conversation. Washington is a one-party consent state. You can legally record conversations you're part of. Rachel came over Friday night to help me prepare. She brought a small digital voice recorder her grandson had given her. Put this in your purse, she said, showing me how to press the button. 8 hours of battery. Just turn it on before you go in. I feel like a spy. You're not a spy. You're a mother protecting herself from people who want to steal from you. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, typical Seattle weather. I dressed in a simple blue cardigan and khakis, trying to look like the harmless old woman they expected. The drive to Bellevue took 30 minutes. Their condo building looked even more imposing in the rain, all glass and steel and money. I parked in the visitor spot, pressed the button on the recorder in my purse, and took a deep breath. Time to see who my son had really become. Andrew answered the door, and for a moment I saw my little boy. Same green eyes, same smile. But then Diane appeared behind him, and his expression shifted, became guarded. Hi, Mom. He hugged me quickly, barely making contact. Come in. The condo was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington. Modern furniture in shades of white and gray. Abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than my car. Your home is beautiful, I said honestly. We worked with an interior designer, Diane said, not looking up from her phone. We wanted something sophisticated. There was that word again. Sophisticated. The opposite of whatever I was. A man stood up from the white leather couch. He was mid-40s, wearing an expensive charcoal suit, his hair slicked back with too much product. His smile was practiced, showing too many teeth. Mrs. Morrison, I'm Marcus Webb. He extended his hand. I'm a certified financial planner specializing in retirement asset management. His handshake was too firm, too long, like he was trying to prove something. We sat in the living room, me in a stiff modern chair, them on the couch, like a united front Marcus, in another chair angled toward me. Mom, can I get you some coffee tea? Andrew asked. Water would be nice. He disappeared into the kitchen while Diane and Marcus exchanged a look. A quick one, but I caught it. Mrs. Morrison, Marcus began, pulling out an iPad. Andrew and Diane have asked me to meet with you because they care deeply about your well-being. That's very thoughtful. I folded my hands in my lap, channeling every elderly woman stereotype I could think of. Confused, overwhelmed, easy to manipulate. Andrew returned with water in a glass that probably cost $50. He sat next to Diane, who immediately put her hand on his knee. Territorial. Mom, we've been really concerned, Andrew said. The house is getting older, you're there all alone, and we just worry about you. Worry about what exactly? Your safety, Diane jumped in. What if you fell and couldn't reach the phone? What if someone took advantage of your kindness? There are so many scammers targeting seniors. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here they were preparing to scam me, warning me about scammers. Marcus tapped his iPad. I've worked with hundreds of seniors in situations exactly like yours. The stress of maintaining a home, managing finances, making complex decisions, it becomes overwhelming. I haven't felt overwhelmed, I said softly. Not yet, Marcus agreed, his tone patronizing. But the statistics are clear. Cognitive decline, difficulty with financial management. These things can sneak up on us as we age. Andrew shifted uncomfortably. Some part of him knew this was wrong, but he wasn't stopping it. We've done some research, Diane said, opening a folder on the coffee table. There are some wonderful senior living communities in the area, places where you'd have friends' activities, medical care on site. She pulled out glossy brochures. Evergreen Senior Living in Kirkland is particularly nice. They have a waiting list, but with the right recommendation. Senior living. They meant a nursing home. I took the brochure with shaking hands, not from fear, but from anger I had to hide. The photos showed smiling elderly people playing bingo, doing chair yoga, sitting in a dining hall that looked like a hospital cafeteria. This looks expensive, I said. That's where smart planning comes in. Marcus said smoothly. He pulled up a document on his iPad. I've done a preliminary analysis based on public records. Your house in Ballard is currently valued at approximately $650,000. My stomach turned. They'd been researching my assets. After selling costs, you'd net around $600,000. Evergreen costs $4,500 per month for a one-bedroom apartment with full services. That's $54,000 per year. He showed me a spreadsheet. Numbers and projections that made my head spin deliberately, I suspected. With proper investment management, which my firm provides your funds, could last 20 to 25 years, maybe more. What about my Social Security? I asked. And James's life insurance. Those would supplement, of course. But Mrs. Morrison, the key is professional management. Too many seniors try to handle finances themselves and make costly mistakes. Diane leaned forward. Mom, Ava, we just want you to be safe and comfortable. Imagine not worrying about a broken furnace or a leaky roof. Imagine having people around activities care when you need it. Who would manage my money? I asked, though I already knew. Marcus smiled. That's the beauty of the plan I've designed. Andrew and Diane would be co-trustees of your investment account. They'd work with my firm to ensure everything is managed properly. You'd have complete transparency monthly statements, quarterly reviews. Co-trustees, meaning they'd control everything. I also prepared some other documents. Marcus continued pulling papers from his leather briefcase. A durable power of attorney in case you ever become unable to make decisions yourself, and a healthcare directive. All standard eldercare planning. He spread the papers on the coffee table like a card dealer. I could see my name already filled in on several lines, blank spaces for my signature. This seems like a lot to think about, I said, my voice intentionally wavering. Of course it is, Diane said with fake sympathy. That's why we're here to help. We've already done all the research. All you need to do is sign and we'll take care of everything else. Andrew spoke up, his voice softer. Mom, I know it seems scary. Change is always scary, but Diane and I really think this is best. You'd be so much happier not having to worry about everything. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Was he being manipulated or was he part of this? Can I think about it? I asked. This is my home. It's where your father and I built our life, where I raised you. Of course you're emotional, Marcus said. But Mrs. Morrison emotions often cloud judgment when it comes to financial decisions. The longer you wait, the more you're at risk. What if something happens? What if you have a medical emergency? Creating urgency. Hayes had warned me about this. The spots at Evergreen are very limited, Diane added. If we don't reserve soon, you might miss this opportunity. And there's one more thing we should discuss, Marcus said carefully. I've reviewed public records and I noticed your husband worked for a tech company. Sometimes there are benefits, stock options, things that widows don't even know about. My heart stopped. Were they fishing for information about the ranch? Did James ever mention any investments? Property, anything besides the house and insurance? This was it, the moment Hayes had prepared me for. I could feel the recorder in my purse capturing everything. No, I said slowly. Just the house and his life insurance, that's all. Marcus and Diane exchanged another look, disappointed. They'd been hoping for more. Well, regardless, Marcus said, recovering smoothly. The plan I've outlined will ensure your security. All we need is your signature on these documents and we can get started immediately. He picked up a gold pen, expensive, flashy, and held it out to me. I really think I need more time, I said. Maybe I should talk to a lawyer first. A lawyer. Diane's voice sharpened, then caught herself. Mom, lawyers just complicate things, and they're expensive. This is family. You can trust us. Andrew nodded. We just want to help Mom. The room felt smaller suddenly. 3 of them all watching me, all waiting for me to sign away my independence. Let me take the papers home, I said, reaching for them. I'll look them over and actually, Marcus interrupted, pulling the papers back. These documents need to be notarized when signed. I have a notary on call who can come here. It's better to do everything at once properly. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, I said truthfully. Can we schedule another time? Maybe next week? Diane's smile was brittle. Mom, Ava, you're not getting any younger. Every day you delay is another day of risk. What if something happened to you this week? What if you had a stroke? Who would handle everything? Diane's right, Andrew said. It's better to get this done now while you're healthy and can make clear decisions. While I can make clear decisions. The implication being that soon I wouldn't be able to. I stood up, clutching my purse. I need to use the restroom. Down the hall, first door on the right, Andrew said. I walked down the hallway on shaking legs. In the bathroom, all white marble and chrome, I ran cold water over my wrists, trying to calm down. I could hear their voices muffled from the living room. I cracked the door open slightly. She's resisting more than expected, Marcus was saying. She's stubborn, Diane replied. Always has been. Maybe we need to take a different approach, Andrew said. This feels too aggressive. Your mother needs protection, Andrew, whether she realizes it or not. If we have to push harder, we push harder. What if we can't get her to sign? That was Andrew, doubt creeping into his voice. Then we go to Plan B, Diane said coldly. We petition for conservatorship. We show the court she can't manage her own affairs. With Marcus's testimony as a financial expert and documentation of her declining state. She's not declining, Andrew protested weakly. She will be once we document it properly. Missed appointments, confusion about finances, erratic behavior. It's not that hard to build a case. My hands gripped the marble counter. They were planning to have me declared incompetent. I flushed the toilet, ran the water loud enough to cover my movements, and returned to the living room. I'm sorry, I said, gathering my coat. I'm not feeling well. I think I need to go home. Mom, wait, Andrew started. Please, just let me think about all this. I'll call you in a few days. Marcus stood blocking my path to the door. Mrs. Morrison, I strongly advise you to consider the risks of delay. As your son said, you're not getting any younger. I understand. I moved around him. Thank you for your time. Andrew walked me to the door. For just a moment, when Diane couldn't see his face, he looked guilty. Mom, I really do think this is best for you. I touched his cheek the way I used to when he was little. Do you, Andrew? Do you really? He couldn't meet my eyes. I drove home in the rain, my hands tight on the steering wheel. The recorder in my purse had captured everything. When I got home, Rachel was waiting on my porch, umbrella in hand. How bad? She asked. Worse than we thought. We sat at my kitchen table and listened to the recording. Every manipulative word, every veiled threat. Diane's cold voice discussing conservatorship like it was a business strategy. Rachel's face got redder and redder. That absolute call Hayes, I interrupted. Tell him we need to meet, tomorrow. What are you going to do? I thought about James's letter, about protecting myself, about the ranch they didn't know existed. I'm going to let them keep digging their hole, and when they're deep enough, I'm going to bury them in it. Sunday morning, Robert Hayes met us at his office. Emergency meeting, he'd called it. He listened to the recording twice, taking notes. When Diane's voice said the word conservatorship, his jaw tightened. This is actionable, he said finally. This is conspiracy to commit elder abuse. If they follow through, we can file criminal charges. I don't want to send my son to jail, I said. Your son is complicit in a plan to steal your independence and your assets. You need to accept that. The words hurt, but he was right. What do we do now? Hayes pulled out a thick folder. I've been busy this week. First, the irrevocable trust for the ranch is complete. It's untouchable. Even if they somehow got power of attorney, even if they got conservatorship, which they won't, they can't access it. Second, I've prepared a cognitive evaluation report from Dr. Sarah Martinez, a geriatric psychiatrist. She reviewed your medical records and agrees to testify that you show zero signs of cognitive decline or incompetence. Third, I've filed a preemptive legal document with the court. It's essentially a declaration of competence supported by medical evidence. If they try to petition for conservatorship, the judge will already have our evidence on file. Rachel squeezed my hand. You're building a fortress. Exactly, Hayes agreed. But there's one more thing we need to discuss, the end game. What do you mean? Mrs. Morrison, they're going to escalate. They'll call more often, pressure harder, maybe even show up at your house. We need to document every interaction, but we also need to plan for the confrontation. What kind of confrontation? The moment when they realize you're not going to cooperate. That's when people like Diane show their true colors. And that's when we want witnesses. He leaned forward. I want you to invite them to your house. Tell them you're ready to discuss their plan. Let them come with their notary, their documents, their schemes. But when they arrive, I'll be there too. with an investigator from the King County Prosecutor's Elder Abuse Unit. My heart raced. You want to catch them in the act. I want to protect you legally, yes. But more than that, I want your son to see what he's involved in. Sometimes people don't realize they're on the wrong path until someone shines a light on it. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure increased exactly as Hayes predicted. Diane called every other day. Have you thought more about Evergreen, Mom? The waiting list is getting longer. Andrew texted. Mom, we really need to talk. Can I come over? Marcus sent emails with subject lines like urgent estate planning deadline and time-sensitive your financial security. I responded to each with variations of I'm thinking about it, and soon I promise. Meanwhile, Hayes prepared. He brought in Daniel Brooks, an investigator from the Elder Abuse Unit, a serious man in his 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Morrison, Brooks said when we met, I want you to know we take these cases very seriously. Elder financial abuse is one of the fastest-growing crimes in Washington state. Most of it happens within families. Do you really think they'll go through with it? I asked. Based on the recording and the pattern, yes. People like this don't stop. They've invested too much time, built too much of a plan. They'll push until they either succeed or get caught. What happens to Andrew if they're caught? Brooks's expression softened. That depends on his level of involvement. If he's been manipulated by his wife, that's different than if he's an active participant. The recording suggests he has doubts. That could work in his favor. Rachel helped me prepare my house. We set up a small camera in the living room hidden in a bookshelf, perfectly legal since it was my home. We tested the audio equipment. We made sure everything would be documented. On a Wednesday morning, I called Diane. I've made my decision, I said, letting my voice shake slightly. You're right, this house is too much. I'd like to discuss the plan. Oh, Mom, Ava, I'm so glad. Diane's voice was triumphant. When can we come over? Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock, I'd feel more comfortable in my own home. Of course. We'll bring Marcus and the notary. We can handle everything at once. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and let myself cry. Real tears this time. Because part of me still hoped I was wrong. Still hoped Andrew would stop this. But I knew better now. Friday night, Rachel stayed over. We didn't talk much. Just sat together, two old friends who'd been through divorces, deaths, and now this. Whatever happens tomorrow, Rachel said, I'm proud of you. You're not going down without a fight. Saturday dawned clear and bright, rare for Seattle in spring. I dressed carefully. Simple clothes, a little makeup. I wanted to look like myself, not like someone incompetent who needed managing. At 1:30, Hayes arrived. Then Brooks. They positioned themselves in the kitchen out of sight, but close enough to hear everything. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. Andrew stood there with Diane and Marcus. Behind them was another man carrying a briefcase. Mom, Andrew tried to smile. He looked tired. Come in, I said. All of you. They filed into my living room. The space suddenly felt smaller with all of them there. Diane introduced the fourth man. This is Paul Norton. He's a mobile notary. We thought it would be easier to have him here so we can finalize everything today. Paul was thin with a sparse mustache and nervous hands. His eyes darted around my home like he was appraising it. Mrs. Morrison, pleasure to meet you. His handshake was damp. I'm prepared to notarize any documents you need today. They settled onto my couch and chairs. Marcus opened his briefcase with a flourish like a magician about to perform a trick. Before we begin, I said carefully, I'd like to record this meeting. For my own records. Is everyone comfortable with that? A pause. Diane's eyes narrowed slightly. Of course, Marcus said smoothly. Transparency is important in these matters. I set my phone on the coffee table, pressed record, and sat in my armchair, James's old chair. It felt like armor. Mrs. Morrison, Marcus began, I'm so pleased you've decided to move forward with this sensible plan. I've brought all the documents we discussed. Once signed and notarized, we can begin the process immediately. He spread papers across my coffee table. Power of attorney, asset management agreements, the application for Evergreen Senior Living, complete with a check for a $10,000 deposit. Who wrote that check? I asked. We did, Diane said. We wanted to secure your spot. You can reimburse us once the house sells. They'd already spent money, already committed. They weren't going to walk away easily. Let's review each document, Marcus said, picking up the power of attorney. This gives Andrew and Diane the legal authority to manage your finances and make decisions on your behalf. It's quite standard. All my finances? Yes. Bank accounts, investments, property decisions. It ensures that if you become unable to make decisions, everything is handled smoothly. What if I change my mind later? Marcus's smile tightened. Well, once you sign, it's legally binding. Of course, you could revoke it, but that would require legal proceedings. It's really designed to be permanent for your protection. For my protection. Everything was for my protection. And this document, I picked up another paper. That's the listing agreement for your house, Diane said. My friend Jennifer is a top real estate agent. She can get you top dollar. We've already discussed the marketing strategy. You discussed selling my house without me. We were just being prepared, Andrew said quickly. We wanted everything ready so you wouldn't have to worry about details. I looked at my son, really looked at him. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. Andrew, do you think I can't manage my own affairs? Mom, it's not that. Because this power of attorney says I'm incompetent. It says I need other people to control my life. No one said incompetent, Marcus interrupted. But Mrs. Morrison at 69 facing the challenges of aging alone, it's simply wise to have safeguards. Paul the notary cleared his throat. Ma'am, I should mention that I need to verify you're signing these documents of your own free will and that you understand what you're signing. Of course she does, Diane snapped, then catching herself softened her tone. Mom, Ava just needs time to read everything carefully. I picked up each document reading slowly. The power of attorney was comprehensive. It gave Andrew and Diane control over everything. My bank accounts, my house, my medical decisions, my entire life. The asset management agreement with Marcus's firm included fees that would drain thousands from any investments annually. The Evergreen application had a clause that made it nearly impossible to leave once admitted. I'd be locked in. These documents are very thorough, I said. We wanted to make sure everything was covered, Marcus said. Elder law can be complex. It's better to have everything spelled out clearly. What happens if I don't sign? Silence, heavy and thick. Why wouldn't you sign? Diane asked, her voice taking on an edge. We've spent weeks planning this. We've secured your spot at Evergreen. We've done all this work to help you. I just want to understand my options. Your options are to accept help or to continue struggling alone, Diane said, dropping the pretense of sweetness. Do you really want to stay in this big house by yourself? What if you fall? What if you forget to pay a bill? What if I'm fine? I interrupted. What if I'm perfectly capable of managing my own life? Mom, Andrew tried again. We're not saying you're not capable now, but things change. People get older. We just want to be prepared. Prepared to take everything from me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus jumped in his professional mask, slipping slightly. Mrs. Morrison, I think you're misunderstanding the situation. This is a gift your son and daughter-in-law are offering. They're willing to take on the burden of managing your affairs. Burden, I repeated. Managing my affairs is a burden. That's not what I meant. Let me ask you something, Marcus. What's your commission on managing my assets? His face reddened. That's confidential client information. Is it 2% annually, 3%? How much do you make if I sign these papers? My fees are competitive and standard for. How much? 2.5% of assets under management, he said stiffly. So if I have, say, $600,000, you'd make $15,000 a year. For how long? For as long as you need professional management. Which would be the rest of my life, according to these documents. Diane stood up, her composure cracking. What is this? Why are you interrogating us? We're trying to help you. Are you? I stayed seated calm. Or are you trying to steal from me? Steal. Andrew's voice was shocked. Mom, how can you say that? We're family. Family doesn't pressure family into signing away their independence. We're not pressuring, Diane started. You've called me every other day. You've sent urgent emails. You wrote a $10,000 check without my permission. You brought a notary to my house. If this isn't pressure, what is? Paul the notary shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should take a break. Let everyone calm down. I'm perfectly calm, they said. In fact, I've never been clearer about anything in my life. Marcus tried one more time. Mrs. Morrison, you're obviously feeling emotional. Why don't we schedule another meeting? Give you time to think without the pressure of, I've had plenty of time to think. I stood up now, facing all of them. I've thought about how I was treated at the wedding, how I was ignored and dismissed, how my own son hasn't called me in weeks unless it was to push this plan. Mom, Andrew's voice broke. I've thought about how you showed up at my door with papers already filled out, with a notary ready, with a check already written. You didn't want to help me. You wanted to control me. That's not fair, Diane said coldly. Everything we've done has been for your benefit. My benefit or yours? She said nothing. Did you know, I said conversationally, that elder financial abuse is one of the fastest growing crimes in America, that most of it happens within families, that children convince themselves they're helping while they're actually stealing? I've done research too. Marcus snapped his briefcase shut. I think this meeting is over. Mrs. Morrison, you're clearly not in a frame of mind to make rational decisions. Perhaps we should discuss other options. Other options, I asked. You mean conservatorship, having me declared incompetent? The silence was deafening. That's what you discussed at the condo, isn't it, when I was in the bathroom? Plan B if I didn't sign. Petition the court, build a case that I'm declining, have me declared unable to manage my affairs. Andrew went white. You heard that? I heard everything. Diane's face hardened. You were spying on us. I was protecting myself, and thank God I did. I picked up my phone, stopped the recording, and called out, Mr. Hayes, Mr. Brooks, could you come in here, please? Robert Hayes walked in from the kitchen, followed by Daniel Brooks. The color drained from Diane's face. What is this? Marcus demanded. I'm Robert Hayes, Mrs. Morrison's attorney. Hayes's voice was ice. And this is Daniel Brooks, investigator with the King County Prosecutor's Elder Abuse Unit. Brooks pulled out his badge and camera. For the record, I'm documenting this meeting as part of an ongoing investigation into potential elder financial abuse. Paul the notary stood up so fast he knocked over his briefcase. I didn't know anything about this. I'm just a notary. I was hired to— Sit down, Mr. Norton, Brooks said firmly. We'll need to ask you some questions. This is insane, Diane said, but her voice shook. We're family. We were helping Hayes picked up the power of attorney document. This document gives you complete control over Mrs. Morrison's assets. The language here is unusually broad, almost as if it was designed to prevent her from regaining control. That's standard legal language, Marcus protested. I've practiced elder law for 30 years. This is not standard. This is predatory. Hayes picked up another document. And this asset management agreement. 2.5% annually with a clause that makes it extremely difficult to terminate, plus hidden fees that would drain thousands more. My firm's fee structure is competitive. Your firm has been flagged by the Washington State Securities Division for aggressive sales tactics targeting seniors, Brooks interrupted. We've been investigating you for 6 months, Mr. Webb. Marcus's face went pale. Brooks turned to Diane. Ms. Sterling, or should I say Mrs. Morrison now, we've done some research on you, too. He pulled out a folder. 3 previous relationships with men who had elderly parents with assets. 3 cases where those elderly parents were pressured to change estate plans or transfer assets. All settled quietly out of court. Andrew grabbed the folder, his hands shaking as he read. Diane, what is this? It's nothing, she said quickly. Those were misunderstandings. Families being greedy and— It's a pattern, Brooks said. You target men with aging parents. You isolate the parent, undermine their confidence, then move in for the assets. That's not true. Isn't it? Hayes pulled out a small recorder. Would you like to hear the recording from the condo 2 weeks ago, where you discussed having Mrs. Morrison declared incompetent, where you outlined Plan B? He pressed play. Diane's voice filled the room. Then we go to Plan B. We petition for conservatorship. We show the court she can't manage her own affairs. Andrew dropped the folder. Oh my God. The recording continued. She will be once we document it properly. Missed appointments, confusion about finances, erratic behavior. It's not that hard to build a case. She's not declining, Andrew's recorded voice said weakly. She will be once we document it properly. Hayes stopped the recording. The silence was crushing. Andrew looked at Diane like he'd never seen her before. You were going to have my mother declared incompetent. You were going to fabricate evidence. Andrew, you don't understand. I was just stealing, just destroying my mother's life. We need that money, Diane exploded. Do you know how much debt I have? Do you know what it costs to maintain our lifestyle? Your mother is sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars doing nothing with it. She's going to die alone in this dump of a house, and for what? The mask was completely off now. The cold, calculating predator stood revealed. I worked for this, Diane continued, her voice venomous. I spent months pretending to like you, pretending to want this boring life in Seattle playing the devoted wife. I earned that money. You earned nothing, I said quietly. You lied. You manipulated. You tried to steal. Diane turned on me, all pretense of respect gone. You sanctimonious old woman. Do you know how pathetic you are clinging to this house, to your memories, to your precious independence? You're going to die alone and everything you're hoarding will be wasted. That's enough, Brooke said. Ms. Sterling, I'm advising you that anything you say can and will be used in legal proceedings. She laughed, a harsh sound. Legal proceedings for what? I haven't done anything illegal. I suggested a retirement home. I tried to help with financial planning. That's not a crime. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse is, Brooke said. Fraudulent misrepresentation to obtain power of attorney is. Attempted theft through undue influence is. Marcus tried to leave. Brooke stepped in front of the door. Mr. Webb, we need to discuss your role in this. Did you know about Ms. Sterling's history? I was just providing financial advice. Standard services. If she misled me about her intentions, you brought pre-filled documents to pressure a senior citizen into immediate signing, Hayes said. You created artificial urgency. You stood to profit significantly. That's not standard service. That's exploitation. Paul the notary spoke up, his voice trembling. I want to cooperate fully. I was hired by Ms. Sterling. She told me this was a simple estate signing. I didn't know about any of this. We'll need a full statement, Brooke said. Andrew had been silent, staring at Diane. Now he spoke, his voice hollow. Who are you? I'm someone who's tired of being poor, Diane spat. Someone who's tired of pretending. You want to know the truth, Andrew? I never loved you. I researched you. I found out your mother was a widow, that there had to be assets that you were weak enough to manipulate. Each word was a knife. I played you perfectly. The networking event where we met, I engineered it. Our chance encounters planned. Every single moment of our relationship was a calculated move toward this house, this money. Andrew's face crumbled. But we're married. You thought what, that I actually wanted to spend my life with an ordinary software engineer in boring Seattle. I have ambitions, Andrew. Real ambitions, not your small, pathetic dreams. That's enough, I said, standing. You need to leave my house, now. Diane grabbed her purse, her face twisted with rage. Fine, keep your pathetic house, keep your pathetic life. Die alone in this museum of mediocrity. I hope it's worth it. She stormed toward the door, then turned back one last time. You'll regret this, all of you. I'll sue for spousal support. I'll tell everyone you're all crazy. You'll do nothing, Hayes said calmly. Because if you pursue any legal action, we'll file criminal charges. Elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy. You'll face jail time. So you'll take the annulment we're offering, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and disappear. Those are your options. Diane looked like she wanted to say more, but Brooks opened the door pointedly. She left her high heels clicking on my walkway one last time. Marcus followed, muttering about his lawyer. Paul the notary stayed to give his statement, apologizing profusely. When they were gone, I looked at my son. Andrew stood in the middle of my living room, tears streaming down his face. He looked lost, broken. Mom, He couldn't finish. I wanted to hold him. I wanted to comfort him like I did when he was little. But I also wanted him to feel this pain, to understand what he'd almost done. Why, Andrew? I asked. Why didn't you protect me? I thought I was helping. Diane said you were struggling, that you were too proud to ask for help, that we needed to be firm because otherwise you'd refuse out of stubbornness. And you believed her over me, over 32 years of me being your mother. He sobbed. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. She made everything sound so reasonable. And I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe I'd found someone who understood me, who loved me, who wanted to build a life together. She played you, Hayes said, not unkindly. She's done this before. She's very good at it. I almost destroyed you, Andrew said to me. I almost let her take everything from you. What kind of son does that? The question hung in the air. Brooks finished his notes and prepared to leave. Mrs. Morrison, we'll need you to come in and give a formal statement. We're building a case not just against Ms. Sterling, but against Marcus Webb's firm. Your evidence might help other victims. I'll do whatever helps, I said. After Brooks left, Hayes gathered his papers. Mrs. Morrison, you should know this isn't over. Diane will likely try to salvage something from the marriage. Andrew, you'll need your own attorney for the divorce proceedings. Annulment, Andrew said quietly. It was all fraud. Our entire relationship was fraud. Hayes nodded. That's the angle we'll pursue, but it won't be quick or easy. After Hayes left, it was just me, Andrew, and Rachel who'd been silent in the corner throughout everything. Andrew collapsed onto my couch. I don't know what to do. I don't know who I am anymore. Everything I thought was real. I sat beside him. Not too close. Not yet. You're still my son, I said finally. You made terrible choices. You hurt me deeply. You nearly destroyed my life. But you're still my son. How can you forgive me? I didn't say I forgave you. I said you're still my son. Forgiveness. That takes time. And it takes action, not just words. He nodded, understanding. Where will you stay? Rachel asked practically. Hotel, I guess. I can't go back to the condo. I can't see her. There's the guest room upstairs, I heard myself say. Just for a few days, until you figure things out. Andrew looked at me, hope and shame warring in his eyes. Are you sure? No, I said honestly. But you're my son, and right now you need your mother. He hugged me then, and I let him. He cried into my shoulder like he did when he was little and had fallen off his bike. But this time the wounds were so much deeper, and I knew they'd take much longer to heal. The first 3 days after the confrontation were strange and silent. Andrew stayed in the guest room, my old sewing room that still smelled faintly of lavender sachets. He barely came out except for meals. I'd hear him on the phone sometimes talking to lawyers, to his boss at work, to friends trying to explain what happened. How do you explain that your entire marriage was a lie? Rachel came by every morning with coffee and practical advice. She'd always been the one who knew what to do in a crisis. He needs time to process, she said on day 3, sitting at my kitchen table. His whole world just collapsed. My world collapsed too, I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. But I had to keep fighting. You're stronger than him. You always have been. I looked at the ceiling, imagining Andrew up there staring at the walls. Part of me wanted to rush up and comfort him, but a larger part, the part that had been hurt and betrayed, needed him to sit with what he'd done. On day 4, he came downstairs at breakfast time. His eyes were red, his face unshaven. He looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. Can I make you some eggs? I asked. He nodded, sitting at the table where he'd eaten 1,000 childhood breakfasts. I cooked in silence. Scrambled eggs with cheese the way he liked them. Toast with butter and strawberry jam. Orange juice in the glass with the cartoon dinosaur that had been his favorite when he was 7. When I set the plate in front of him, he stared at it for a long moment. You kept the dinosaur glass, he said, his voice rough. I kept everything. Your room is still your room. Your old baseball trophies are still on the shelf. Your father's tools are still in the garage waiting for you to need them. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Why, after everything I did, why would you keep all that? Because I never stopped being your mother, even when you stopped being my son. The words hit him like a physical blow, but they needed to be said. I've been thinking, he said after a long pause. About Dad, about what he would think of me. James, my heart ached at the mention of his name. Your father loved you more than anything in this world, I said carefully. But he also believed in honor, in protecting family, not preying on them. He'd be ashamed of me. Yes, he would. I didn't soften it. Andrew needed truth right now, not comfort. But he'd also believe you could do better, could be better. That's what I'm hoping for too. Andrew ate slowly, like the food hurt going down. My lawyer says Diane's demanding spousal support. Can you believe that after everything she wants me to pay her? What did your lawyer say? That we have a strong case for annulment based on fraud. The recordings, the investigation, her history, it all proves the marriage was entered into under false pretenses. But it'll take months, maybe a year. Are you prepared for that? I don't have a choice. He pushed eggs around his plate. I called work, told them I needed some time off. They were understanding, but Mom, I don't know how to go back to normal life. I don't even know what normal is anymore. Normal is gone, I said gently. You have to build something new. He nodded, a lost little boy in a 32-year-old man's body. That afternoon, Robert Hayes called with news. The prosecutor's office is moving forward with charges against Marcus Webb, he said. They found evidence of similar schemes with at least 6 other elderly clients. Your testimony will be crucial. What about Diane? That's more complicated. She was careful not to put anything in writing. The recordings help, but without more concrete evidence of fraud. The prosecutor is considering charges, but it's not guaranteed. So she might walk away from this. She might. But Mrs. Morrison, there's another development. Hayes paused. Patricia Sterling, Diane's mother, contacted my office. She wants to meet with you. My blood ran cold. Why? She claims she didn't know the full extent of Diane's plans. She wants to apologize. Absolutely not. She was in my house that first night asking about James's estate. She was part of this. I agree. I told her you weren't interested. But she's persistent. She's calling daily. Let her call. I have nothing to say to her. After I hung up, I found Andrew standing in the doorway. He'd heard everything. Patricia was involved, he asked. She was fishing for information about our assets from the first night we met. Looking back, all the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Andrew's face hardened. Something shifted in his expression. Anger, maybe. Or determination. I want to help, he said. Help with what? With whatever you're planning next. You haven't told me everything, Mom. I know you. You're 3 steps ahead of everyone else. So what's the real plan? I studied my son. Could I trust him? He'd betrayed me once. How could I be sure he wouldn't again? But I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in months. Clarity, purpose, remorse. Come with me, I said. I led Andrew to my bedroom and opened the closet safe. After your father died, I found some documents. I began pulling out the yellow envelope. Documents I didn't know existed. I handed him the deed to Riverbend Ranch. He read it once. Then again. His eyes grew wider with each line. 520 acres worth $4 million. His voice was barely a whisper. Mom, you're rich. You're actually wealthy. Your father left it to me. Kept it secret even from me until after he was gone. Andrew sank onto my bed, still holding the papers. Why didn't he tell you? I showed him James's letter. Watched Andrew read his father's words, saw the tears come. Some will love you for you, others for what you have. Andrew read aloud. Dad knew. He knew people would change if they knew about money. He protected me, even from beyond the grave. Andrew looked up at me, understanding dawning. That's why you didn't tell me. Before the wedding, during the wedding. You knew if Diane found out about this, she'd have manipulated me even more skillfully. She'd have pretended to love me, to want a relationship with me. And you'd have married her thinking everything was perfect. Instead, by staying silent, you let me see who she really was. Yes. He stood up, pacing my small bedroom. You let her show her true colors. You documented everything. You built a legal case. You protected yourself and proved what she was. I learned from your father. He taught me that silence can be the most powerful weapon. Andrew turned to face me, his expression transformed. You're brilliant. I've spent my whole life thinking of you as just my mom. Sweet, simple, always there. But you're so much more than that. I'm exactly who I've always been. You just stopped seeing me clearly. He came to me, then dropped to his knees like he used to when he was little, and needed to apologize for breaking something. Mom, I am so deeply sorry. Not just for the last few months, for years. For taking you for granted. For not calling enough, not visiting enough. For treating you like an afterthought in my life. Andrew, no, please let me say this. His voice broke. You raised me alone after Dad died. You were there for every moment of my life that mattered. And I repaid you by choosing a con artist over you. By trying to steal your independence, your home, your dignity. You didn't know what she was. I should have known you, he said fiercely. I should have trusted my mother over someone I'd known 8 months. I should have remembered that you've never once in your life done anything except love me and protect me. I touched his hair, still thick and dark like James's had been. You made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but you're here now, and you're seeing clearly now. That's what matters. What can I do? How can I ever make this right? You can't, I said honestly. Not completely, but you can start by being the man your father raised you to be. The man I know is still in there somewhere. He hugged me then, and I held him like I did when he was small and the world seemed too big and scary. But this time he was the one who'd made the world scary. And we both knew it would take more than a hug to fix everything broken between us. I want to see it, Andrew said suddenly. The ranch. I want to see what Dad left you. I thought about it, about whether I was ready to share that part of my new life with him. This weekend, I decided. We'll drive out together, just you and me. Saturday morning dawned clear and cold. Spring in the Pacific Northwest meant you never knew what weather you'd get. Andrew loaded a cooler into my old Honda while I packed sandwiches and coffee in a thermos. It felt like the road trips we used to take when he was young, to the ocean, to the mountains, to anywhere that promised adventure. We should take my car, Andrew offered. It's more comfortable for a long drive. Your car is still at the condo with Diane. Besides, my Honda has never let me down. We headed east on I-90, leaving Seattle behind. The highway climbed through the Cascade Mountains, evergreens thick on both sides. We didn't talk much at first. Just let the radio fill the silence with classic rock. As we crested Snoqualmie Pass, Andrew finally spoke. I've been thinking about what Hayes said, about the other victims of people like Diane. What about them? I keep wondering how many sons like me are out there. How many people are being manipulated into betraying their parents right now? Probably hundreds, thousands even. It makes me sick. He stared out the window at the snow-capped mountains. I thought I was smarter than that. I have a master's degree in computer science, Mom. I solve complex problems for a living. How did I not see what was happening? Love makes people blind, or what we think is love. It wasn't love. I know that now, but I wanted it to be so badly that I convinced myself. We drove through Cle Elum, then Ellensburg. The landscape changed from mountains to high desert, all rolling hills and sagebrush. Tell me about the ranch, Andrew said. What's it like? I don't know. I've never been there. He looked at me shocked. What, you've owned it for 2 years and never visited? I was afraid, I admitted. Afraid of what it represented. Afraid of the life it meant I could have. Sometimes it's easier to stay small and scared than to step into something big. But you're going now, because I'm not afraid anymore. Diane and her schemes, they taught me something. They taught me that I have to protect what's mine and claim what I deserve. We turned off the highway near Wenatchee, following Thomas Wright's directions. The road wound through apple orchards just beginning to bloom white and pink blossoms like clouds against the brown earth. Then we saw the sign, Riverbend Ranch, Esther 1952. The gate was open. We drove down a long gravel driveway lined with cottonwood trees. And there at the end was the house. It was beautiful. A craftsman-style home painted sage green with white trim surrounded by a wraparound porch. Mountains rose behind it, still snow-capped. A stream, the Wenatchee River, wound through the property, glinting in the sun. Thomas Wright was waiting on the porch. He was older than I'd imagined from his voice, late 50s, with weathered skin and kind eyes. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, looking every bit the ranch manager. Mrs. Morrison, he said, coming down the steps with his hand extended. Welcome home. Home. The word echoed strangely. This is my son, Andrew. Thomas shook Andrew's hand firmly. Your father talked about you all the time, showed me pictures, said you were the smartest person he knew. Andrew's eyes filled with tears. He said that every visit. Come on, let me show you around. The inside of the house was even more stunning than the outside. Hardwood floors, a stone fireplace, big windows that let in floods of light. The furniture was a mix of antiques and comfortable pieces, everything in earth tones that matched the landscape. Your husband had the place renovated about 5 years ago, Thomas explained. New kitchen, updated bathrooms, but kept the original character. He wanted it ready. Ready for what? I asked. For you. He said someday you'd need it. Said you'd know when the time was right. We walked through 5 bedrooms, each one decorated simply but beautifully. There was an office with built-in bookshelves, a reading nook by a window, a dining room with a table that could seat 12. Andrew kept touching things, the walls, the door frames, the furniture, like he couldn't believe it was real. "Dad did all this?" he asked. "Managed this whole place without anyone knowing." "He was a quiet man, your father," Thomas said. "But thorough, he thought of everything." Outside, Thomas showed us the property. The 3 guest cottages, each with 2 bedrooms and full kitchens. The barns where equipment was stored. The orchards leased to Miguel Rodriguez, who grew organic apples and cherries. "The ranch brings in about $85,000 a year," Thomas explained. "Could be more if you wanted to expand operations. Miguel's interested in leasing more land. There's also been interest in agritourism, people paying to stay in the cottages, experience ranch life." We stood on a hill overlooking the property. The valley stretched out below us, green and gold in the spring sun. The river wound through it like a silver ribbon. "It's beautiful," Andrew breathed. "It's freedom," I said. I thought about my little house in Ballard, about the life I'd lived there, small, careful, always worried about money, always making do. This was different. This was possibility. "Thomas," I said slowly, "what would it take for me to move here, to live here full time?" Andrew's head whipped around. "Mom, are you serious?" "Why not?" "What's keeping me in Seattle? The house where your father died, the memories of being invisible at your wedding, the fear of people like Diane." Thomas smiled. "The house is ready whenever you are. I can have the utilities switched to your name, make sure everything's stocked. You could move in tomorrow if you wanted." "What about my Seattle house?" "Sell it or rent it." "But Mom," Andrew grabbed my hand. "Are you sure you've lived in Seattle your whole life?" "Exactly. Maybe it's time for something new." I walked to the edge of the porch and looked out at the mountains, felt the wind on my face cool and clean, heard the river rushing in the distance. For the first time in 2 years, maybe in my whole life, I felt like I could breathe. "I'm going to do it," I said. "I'm going to move here." Andrew looked stunned. "When?" "Soon. As soon as I can arrange everything." I turned to him. "And I'm going to do something else too, something your father would have wanted." "What's that?" "I'm going to help people. Women like me who are being manipulated, abused, pushed aside. I'm going to turn this ranch into something that matters." The idea had been forming in my mind for days, but now it crystallized fully. "A sanctuary," I said, DA said, "for women who need a safe place while they fight back against the people trying to steal from them." Thomas nodded slowly. "Your husband would like that. He always said this place should serve a purpose bigger than just making money." We stayed at the ranch until sunset, planning and dreaming. Andrew took pictures of everything, already making lists of what needed to be done. On the drive home, he was different, more animated than I'd seen him in months. "We could renovate the cottages first," he said. "Make them fully accessible, add security systems, maybe partner with legal aid organizations to provide services." I asked carefully. He paused. "I mean, if you'd let me help. I know I don't deserve to be part of this, but Mom, I want to do something good, something that makes up for even a fraction of what I did." I thought about it as the highway lights blurred past. "You can help," I said finally. "But Andrew, you have to understand this is my project, my ranch, my decision." "I know. I'm not trying to take over or control anything. I just want to be useful, to be the son you deserved all along." "Then prove it. Not with words, with actions, with time." "I will," he promised. "I swear I will." The next 3 months were a whirlwind. I put my Ballard house on the market. It sold in 2 weeks. Seattle real estate was hot. I made nearly $700,000 after costs. Rachel decided to come with me. "What am I staying in Seattle for?" she said. "My kids are grown, I'm retired, and my best friend is starting an adventure. Sign me up." She moved into Cottage 1 and became my partner in everything. We hired contractors to renovate the other cottages. We met with county officials about zoning for a nonprofit. We consulted with lawyers about the legal structure. Robert Hayes became our pro bono legal advisor. "This is exactly what the community needs," he said. "And Mrs. Morrison, it'll be my honor to help." We found a social worker, Dr. Emily Torres, a 45-year-old with a PhD in gerontology and a passion for elder rights. She came on board as our program director. I've been waiting for something like this my whole career, Emily said when we interviewed her. A place where women can be safe while they fight back. Andrew quit his job in Seattle and bought a small house in Wenatchee, 15 minutes from the ranch. He worked on the ranch every day, handling IT systems, building our database, creating our website. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he told me one day as we worked together painting one of the cottages. I know that takes time. I'm just asking for the chance to be someone you can be proud of again. I was always proud of you, I said. Even when I was angry and hurt, that's what made it so much worse. By July, we were ready for our first residence. Margaret Walsh was 73, a widow whose adult children had convinced a court to declare her incompetent so they could control her pension. She arrived with one suitcase and a lifetime of betrayal in her eyes. Is this real? She asked, standing in the cottage we'd prepared for her. A place where I can be safe. It's real, I promised, and we're going to help you fight. Hayes worked with Margaret's case, found the procedural errors in the conservatorship ruling, and got it overturned. She stayed with us for 6 weeks, and when she left, she had her independence back. You gave me my life back, she cried, hugging me goodbye. How can I ever thank you? Pay it forward, I said. Help the next woman who needs it. More women came. Beatrice, whose nephew had forged her signature on property documents. Sandra, whose granddaughter and her boyfriend had moved in and taken over her finances. Carol, whose financial advisor had been embezzling for years. Each one had a story of betrayal. Each one needed time support and legal help to fight back. And each one left stronger than she arrived. Andrew threw himself into the work. He set up support groups, taught computer classes so the women could monitor their own finances, help them understand their legal rights. I know what it's like to be manipulated, he told them honestly, to trust someone who's lying to you, to feel stupid and ashamed. But you're not stupid, you're human, and humans deserve to be treated with dignity. The women loved him. This young man who admitted his mistakes, who worked tirelessly to help them, who never talked down to them or treated them like they were helpless. Slowly, painfully, I watched my son become someone I could be proud of again. But forgiveness, that was harder. In late August, on a Tuesday afternoon, a black Mercedes pulled up the ranch driveway. I was on the porch with Rachel going over applications from 3 new women who needed help. I looked up and felt my stomach drop. Diane stepped out of the car. She was still beautiful, still polished. Designer sunglasses, expensive clothes. But there was something harder about her now. Desperate edges showing through the perfection. Patricia, her mother, got out of the passenger side. "What are you doing here?" I called out, standing. "You're not welcome." "We need to talk," Diane said, starting toward the porch. Andrew emerged from cottage 2, where he'd been fixing a leaky faucet. When he saw Diane, he froze. "I said you're not welcome." I moved to the porch steps, blocking their path. 5 minutes, Diane said. "That's all I'm asking." "You're not in a position to ask for anything." "Please." The words seemed to pain her. "I've driven 3 hours. Just hear me out." Rachel put a hand on my arm. "Want me to call the sheriff?" I thought about it. Then curiosity won. 5 minutes, on the porch. You don't come inside." Diane and Patricia climbed the porch steps. I didn't invite them to sit. "Well?" I asked. Diane took off her sunglasses. She looked tired, older. "I did research. I found out about the ranch, about your assets. So I know I made mistakes. I underestimated you." I thought she caught herself. "It doesn't matter what I thought. You thought I was a stupid old woman you could rob. Let's be clear about that." Her jaw tightened. "I want to make a deal." "A deal?" I almost laughed. "You have nothing I want." "Andrew is filing for annulment. If the court grants it, I get nothing. But I was married to him for 6 weeks. Under Washington law, I'm entitled to community property." "There is no community property. You entered the marriage fraudulently. The annulment will be granted." "Maybe, maybe not. Court cases are unpredictable." She leaned forward. "I'll make this simple. Give me $500,000 and I'll sign whatever you want. Annulment papers, non-disclosure agreements, a statement admitting everything. I'll disappear from your lives forever." The audacity of it stole my breath. "You tried to steal everything from me," I said slowly. "You manipulated my son, isolated me from him, tried to have me declared incompetent. And now you want $500,000 to go away." "I want compensation for my time. Diane said coldly. For 6 months of playing devoted girlfriend and 6 weeks of playing dutiful wife. That's fair. Fair, Rachel stood up. Fair would be you in jail. I haven't been charged with anything, and I won't be. There's not enough evidence. Diane's confidence was returning. The recording is inadmissible in criminal court. It was obtained without my knowledge in a private home. Marcus Webb is the one facing charges, not me. We can pursue civil charges, I said. Go ahead. Tie yourself up in court for years. Spend tens of thousands on lawyers. Maybe win, maybe lose. Or give me what I'm asking for, and this ends today. Patricia spoke up for the first time. My daughter made mistakes, but she's also desperate. She has debts you can't imagine. If you don't settle, she has nothing to lose by making your lives hell. Is that a threat? Andrew asked, finally finding his voice. It's reality, Patricia said. Diane can drag this out. She can talk to media, paint herself as the victim of an older woman who hoarded wealth. She can make you all look terrible. Let her try, I said. This ranch isn't a secret anymore. And I have a purpose now. I'm helping women who've been victimized by people exactly like your daughter. If she wants to go public, I welcome it. The more attention on elder abuse, the better. Diane's confidence flickered. You're not the person I thought you were. I'm exactly who I've always been. You just thought being 69 made me weak. Give me the money, Ava. Make this easy on everyone. No. The word hung in the air, simple and final. You'll regret this, Diane said, her voice low and dangerous. The only thing I regret is not seeing you clearly from the start. Now get off my property. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Andrew stepped forward, standing beside me. You get nothing, Diane. No money, no settlement, no sympathy. You lied to me from day one. You played me, you tried to destroy my mother, and you thought you'd walk away rich. Andrew, I was stupid enough to fall for it once, but I'm not stupid anymore. So take your mother and leave. And if you ever contact my mom again, if you ever step foot on this property again, I'll make sure every detail of what you did becomes public record. Diane looked between us, realizing she'd lost. You'll both regret this. We already regret plenty, I said. But giving you anything isn't going to be part of it. They left the Mercedes, kicking up dust on the gravel driveway. Rachel let out a long breath. That woman has nerve. She has desperation, I corrected. And people are dangerous when they're desperate. Andrew looked at me. Do you think she'll actually try something? Maybe, but I'm not afraid of her anymore. And I wasn't. The woman who'd opened her door to Diane all those months ago, desperate for her son's approval, eager to please that woman, was gone. In her place was someone who knew her worth, someone who'd fought back and won, someone who'd learned that silence could be strategy and speaking up could be salvation. 2 weeks after Diane's visit, a local Seattle TV station ran a story. Wealthy widow accused of hoarding while family struggled, the headline read. Diane had gone to the media just as Patricia warned. She painted herself as a concerned daughter-in-law who'd tried to help an elderly woman in decline only to be shut out and accused of terrible things. I just wanted to make sure she was safe, Diane said, on camera, tears in her eyes. But she was so paranoid, so convinced everyone was trying to steal from her. It was heartbreaking. The story ran on the evening news. My phone exploded with calls. But I was ready. Robert Hayes had prepared for this possibility. We'd assembled all our evidence, all our documentation, and we'd contacted several women's advocacy groups who were eager to talk about elder financial abuse. We're not going to respond on their terms, Hayes said during an emergency meeting at the ranch. We're going to control the narrative. 3 days later, we held our own press conference. We set it up on the ranch, the beautiful house and mountains in the background. Local media came then, regional outlets. Then national news picked it up. I stood at a podium Rachel had rented wearing my best dress. Not trying to look sophisticated, just honest. Real. My name is Ava Morrison. I'm 69 years old, and I'm here to talk about elder financial abuse. I told my story. Not all of it. I kept Andrew's role minimal, protecting him as mothers do. But I explained the manipulation, the isolation, the attempt to steal my independence. I stayed silent about my assets, not because I was hoarding them, but because I was protecting them. My late husband taught me, you'll know who loves you for you and who loves you for what you have. He was right. I showed the documents, the pre-filled power of attorney, The recordings Hayes had confirmed they were admissible in this context, the evidence of Diane's history. I'm not the first woman this has happened to, and I won't be the last, but I had resources to fight back. Many women don't. Margaret Walsh stood beside me, willing to tell her story. Then Beatrice, then Sandra. 3 women I'd helped 3 women who'd reclaimed their lives. Mrs. Morrison saved me, Margaret said into the microphones. Without her, I'd still be powerless watching my children steal everything I'd worked for. Dr. Emily Torres spoke about the statistics. 1 in 10 Americans over 60 experiences elder financial abuse. Most of it happens within families, and less than 1 in 25 cases gets reported. Robert Hayes explained the legal frameworks. What happened to Mrs. Morrison was attempted theft, pure and simple, but because it came from family, because it was wrapped in concern and care, it was almost successful. Then Andrew stepped forward. I hadn't known he was going to speak. We'd discussed keeping him out of it, but there he was, walking to the podium. I'm Andrew Morrison Ava's son, he said, his voice shaking, and I was complicit in trying to abuse my mother. Gasps from the reporters. Cameras flashed. I was manipulated by someone I thought loved me, but that's no excuse. I should have seen the signs. I should have protected my mother. Instead, I helped someone try to steal from her. Tears ran down his face, but he kept talking. If you're an adult child watching this, check yourself. Ask if you're really helping your parent, or if you're helping yourself. Ask if you're listening to your parents' wishes or imposing your own. Ask if you're respecting their independence or trying to control them. He looked at me. My mother could have rejected me completely. She would have been justified. Instead, she's giving me a chance to make amends, to be better, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life earning that chance. The press conference went viral. Within 24 hours, the story had shifted completely. Diane wasn't a concerned family member anymore. She was the face of elder abuse. News outlets dug into her history, found the pattern, connected the dots. Marcus Webb's firm was shut down by state regulators. He faced criminal charges. Patricia gave an interview trying to distance herself from Diane, claiming she'd been manipulated too. No one believed her, and Diane disappeared. Moved to California, we heard later. Changed her name. Started over somewhere else. Andrew's confession resonated most. Adult children called and emailed, sharing their own stories of almost falling into the same trap, of realizing they'd been putting their own interests ahead of their parents, of recognizing manipulation in their relationships. You saved my relationship with my mother, one man wrote. I was 6 months into pressuring her to sell her house. Your story made me realize I was doing exactly what you did. I apologized. We're rebuilding our relationship. Donations poured in for Riverbend Haven, enough to expand to 5 cottages to hire more staff to help more women. Within 6 months, we'd helped 67 women reclaim their lives. Other states reached out wanting to replicate our model. And I realized something: my pain had become purpose. My betrayal had become a blessing not for me, but for all the women I could now help. December arrived cold and clear. It had been 1 year since Andrew told me he was getting married. 1 year since I met Diane. 1 year since my life fell apart and then rebuilt itself into something stronger. We threw a party at the ranch, my 70th birthday. A milestone I'd once thought I'd celebrate alone if I celebrated at all. But the ranch was full of people. Current residents, 5 women in various stages of reclaiming their lives. Former residents who'd come back to celebrate. Rachel and her family. Robert Hayes and Daniel Brooks. Dr. Emily Torres. Thomas Wright and his wife. Miguel Rodriguez from the Orchard. Local volunteers and supporters. And Andrew, who'd spent 3 days cooking with me, learning to make the dishes I'd tried to teach him years ago. He'd moved back to Seattle a month earlier, taking a job as a tech consultant for nonprofits. But he came to the ranch every weekend, volunteering 20 hours a week, building websites for the women, teaching computer literacy, leading support groups. Our relationship wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, still times I remembered his betrayal and felt the old hurt. But we were healing, slowly, carefully. He'd started dating someone new, Sophie Martinez, a teacher from Wenatchee. She was kind, genuine, and treated me with respect from the first meeting. This one is different, Rachel whispered to me, watching Sophie help set up tables. This one sees him, not his wallet. Sophie and Andrew were taking it slow, No rush to marriage, no pressure, just two people getting to know each other honestly. I told her everything, Andrew had confessed to me. About Diane, about what I did to you. I wanted her to know the worst of me before deciding if she wanted the best. And she stayed. She said everyone deserves a second chance if they're truly trying to change. At the party, people gave speeches. Margaret talked about finding her strength at Riverbend Haven. Beatrice announced she was writing a book about elder abuse. Sandra revealed she'd started a support group in her own community. Rachel toasted to friendship that survives everything. Hayes toasted to justice. Emily toasted to the women who refused to be victims. Then Andrew stood up. "Mom," he said, his voice carrying across the porch. "A year ago I made the worst mistake of my life. I chose a stranger over you. I nearly destroyed everything you and Dad built. I nearly destroyed you." The crowd was silent. "You could have cut me off completely. You would have been justified, but instead you showed me what real strength looks like, what real love looks like. You let me earn my way back into your life, one action at a time." He raised his glass. "You're not just my mother. You're my hero, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be someone worthy of being your son." I couldn't speak. Just hugged him while everyone applauded. Later, as the sun set over the mountains, I stood alone on the porch for a moment. I thought about James, about the ranch he'd left me, about his warning to protect myself. "You were right," I whispered to the wind. "I was stronger than I thought, and I had more than I imagined. Not just money, not just property. I had purpose. I had community. I had the strength to say no and the courage to say yes to something bigger than myself." Mrs. Morrison, one of the current residents, Janet, a 65-year-old whose son-in-law had been stealing her Social Security, approached tentatively. "Can I talk to you?" "Of course." "I just wanted to say thank you for creating this place, for showing me I didn't have to accept being treated like garbage, for proving that 70 isn't the end. It can be a beginning." I hugged her. "You did the hard part. You chose to fight back. Because you showed me how." After everyone left and the ranch was quiet again, Rachel and I sat on the porch with wine and blankets against the cold. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Keeping the ranch secret, letting Andrew and Diane think you were just a poor widow?" "No. If I'd told them, Diane would have manipulated me more skillfully. Andrew would never have seen her true colors, and I'd never have discovered my own strength. James knew what he was doing. He always did." We sat in comfortable silence, two old friends who'd been through everything together. "What's next?" Rachel asked. "You've built something amazing here, helped dozens of women, changed lives. What do you do for an encore?" I smiled. "Keep going, keep fighting, keep proving that being old doesn't mean being powerless. And Andrew, he's earning his way back. Maybe someday I'll trust him completely again. But until then," I shrugged. "We're building something new. Not the relationship we had before that's gone. Something different. Maybe better. You've become quite the philosopher in your old age. I've become someone who knows her worth. Finally." As the stars came out over Riverbend Ranch, I thought about the year behind me. The betrayal, the pain, the fear. But also the discovery, the fight, the victory. I thought about all the women who'd passed through these doors, who'd found strength here, who'd learned they didn't have to accept being diminished. And I thought about the future, not the small, careful future I'd imagined a year ago, but something expansive and meaningful. "I'm 70 years old," I said to Rachel, "and I'm just getting started." She clinked her wine glass against mine. "To new beginnings at any age." "To new beginnings," I echoed, "and to the strength to say no when necessary and yes when it matters." The ranch settled into peaceful quiet around us. Inside the cottages, women slept soundly, maybe for the first time in months. In the main house, evidence of community and celebration. This was my legacy now. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just protecting myself, but protecting others. James had given me the tools, but I'd done the building, and I wasn't finished yet. 2 years later, on a spring morning, I sat on the porch with my first cup of coffee and watched the sun rise over the mountains. Sophie and Andrew were in the yard, their 6-month-old son, James Harold Morrison, gurgling happily in Sophie's arms. They'd gotten engaged a year after the press conference. Married quietly at the ranch with 30 people. Built a life based on honesty and respect. Rachel emerged from her cottage already dressed for the day. New intake arriving at 2, woman from Spokane, her daughter and son-in-law situation. I'll be ready. Life had settled into a rhythm. Women came, stayed, healed, left. Some for weeks, some for months. All of them stronger when they departed. Andrew had quit consulting and come to work for Riverbend Haven full-time. He managed our expanding programs, our growing staff, our increasing impact. We'd helped over 200 women now, saved millions of dollars from being stolen, prevented dozens of illegal conservatorships, changed laws in 3 states. I'd written a book, The Strength to Say No. It became a bestseller, funded Haven's expansion. Diane was never charged criminally, but she'd faded into obscurity, her reputation destroyed. Last I heard, she was working retail in San Diego under her maiden name. Marcus Webb went to prison for 18 months for fraud. His firm was dissolved, his victims partially compensated. Patricia tried to sue us for defamation. The case was dismissed with prejudice. And me, I was 72 now. Older, grayer, but more alive than I'd ever been. A car pulled up the driveway. A young woman got out looking nervous and lost. "Mrs. Morrison," she called. "I'm Jessica. I drove from Seattle. My grandmother, she needs help. Someone's trying to take everything from her, and she's too afraid to fight back." I stood, set down my coffee, and walked to meet her. "Tell me everything," I said. "Start from the beginning, because that's what we do here at Riverbend Haven. We listen, we believe, we fight, and we win." My husband once told me I was stronger than I thought. He was right. But what he didn't tell me, what I had to learn myself, was that strength isn't just surviving. It's thriving. It's transforming. It's turning pain into purpose and betrayal into blessing. I'm Ava Morrison. I'm 72 years old, and I'm just getting started.